Whistleblower docs reveal Big Pharma's secret meeting. Is there a plot to take down Maha? Blaze News, the mandate starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson. He's back.
What a beautiful morning. What a great day to be back.
It is a beautiful morning.
DC Politics Editor Chris Bedford. It is a beautiful morning. We're in your city. NatCon is upon us. And for everybody at home, it's an early morning because we could only get into this beautiful studio early in the morning.
Good thing in today's news cycle, nothing's going to happen in the next 12 hours that could possibly cause the show to be any bit remotely behind.
If you're out there watching and you're wondering, why aren't they talking about X? It's because we can't talk about what happened today because today hasn't happened yet.
We don't know what happened yet today, but I'm excited. NatCon will be a fun week out here.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. Everyone comes into town, all the nerds. It's like CPAC, but without Google sponsorship and a bunch of socially liberal groups. It'll be interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing, NatCon has always been previously on the outside, and this is a year of a year of governance is now behind us. They've done one previously where the election had already taken place, but this one is year of governance. Where are we? What's going on? Are we still kind of generally aligned for a motley crew? What does the future hold, and what have we learned?
I was talking to Jonathan Girdusky, who's running PR for NatCon.
Yeah.
I think all since the beginning.
Yes.
And he said there is 150 news organizations that are signed up for this, and that's a sign of now we're in power. We won. This is kind of a victory lap, but it's also what are you going to do with the power you have? And there's a kind of energy to it. This is very different than in the past. Where everyone, shaking hands and saying hello with more confidence, and that's a good thing. But we have to see how the week unfolds because I think there's going to be a lot of media looking to seize upon NatCon, wondering about who is leading this movement.
Well, I mean, we're in power. We won. People are trying to seize upon RFK Jr. We have meeting notes here from a leaked secret memo back in April that the Biovaccine Policy Steering Committee, that's, what are you saying? Oh, who is that? It's Pfizer, it's Merck, it's Novavax, et cetera, all these huge pharma companies trying to get together. And they're like, hey, it's time to go to the Hill and lobby for RFK Jr. to go. They said that there's, quote, the Maha movement is a cover for the anti-vaccine campaign, and there are now definitive examples of RFK Jr.'s threats to vaccines and public health. So, guys, why does this matter? Well, of course, they're going to go through and try and protect their profits. There's a lot of lobbying that is happening, and they're calling this right now. They're calling for transparency and testing all of this that RFK is trying to do. They're calling it destabilizing. Well, that's the whole point. We're trying to come in and destabilize everything. We didn't like business as usual.
It's such an excellent vindication of the June 12th reports when it came out that RFK had fired every person on the vaccine steering committee and replaced them. And they said, oh my God, he's firing the experts. Well, I mean, first of all, you have to be stupid to have not paid attention to the last 8 years and not realize that the experts is just code for we'll do everything they can to use unelected power that's been given to them by previous Democrats to undermine President Trump, his secretaries, the administration, and the agenda that the majority of the American people voted for. But two, now here's the evidence. Here's the meeting. Here's the notes. This whole crew of people are completely committed to this. There's so much money. There's not remotely the ethical checks that are put on judges or congressmen or senators or members of the administration to go in and out and take that cash and become extremely wealthy, pushing science that everyone talks about is settled, but basically almost every time I've ever heard that the science is settled, it's not. And this is just another case.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the fact that agency capture is, so if you go to even a lib, textbook for the last 20, 30 years, there'll be a section in it on politics, a political textbook. There'll be a section in it about how we know what happens every time you set up a regulatory agency that's supposed to regulate an industry like the CDC, like FDA, like all the HHS complex, enormous. Like HHS, I mean, there's a lot of money flowing through it, right? Every time you set up a regulatory agency, inevitably, that industry ends up capturing the regulatory process. And this is a grade A case of that, because you have billions and billions of dollars that these companies make, and they have long since taken over the entire regulatory complex that's supposed to regulate them and keep them in check. And so, of course, you're going to have an all-out rebellion when there's billions and billions of dollars at stake, and that's what we see happening. But the good news is that our RFK is very strong on this. So he's not someone who, he's a warrior. He really believes this stuff. That's why people like him. So this battle is on, and it's not over yet by a long shot. There's still tons of bureaucrats in there, but it's a battle that's ongoing and getting messy.
Yeah, they were talking about the investors are going to be sitting on the sidelines for 6 to 9 months, right? They can't have that. But we actually do see some opening questioning now from Donald Trump. Chris, you and I talked about this last week in terms of the COVID vaccine. Donald Trump wrote on a Truth Social post, they are showing me the great numbers and results, but I don't see them to be shown to many others. I want them shown right now to the CDC, the public, to clear up this mess one way or another. I hope Operation Warp Speed was as brilliant as many say it was. If not, we all want to know about it and why. So this is the first time, Chris, that we actually see the president going, wait a minute, are these numbers that you're showing me? Why aren't you showing these to the other people? Why, if this is all on the table, let's lay it out in public.
He's had such blinders on about this. It's unbelievable that he is someone who's as plugged in as Donald Trump is the last person to realize the crowds since 2020, it's been 6 years, have not been cheering a single time for any of his warp speed or vaccine stuff. I mean, I remember hearing from folks who were in his inner circle during his exile from power, and he brought up the vaccines, and someone said, "Hey, you shouldn't bring that up anymore in public. It's not going well." And he was shocked. Mm-hmm. And then he found out that no one in the room had gotten it. Mm-hmm. And he quit. It floored him. It's the first time he'd ever heard about it. I know he's watching Newsmax. I know he's watching Blaze. I know he's watching Fox and Fox Business. So what do you mean you're not hearing this anywhere? But it's been slow. And last week, reports came out it was the first time yet that some of his donors and some of his aides have been able to get him to admit something's fishy here. Something's not quite right privately. Maybe talk about it a little less. So this truth is a good sign that maybe we're going to start digging into this. And it's a good sign that maybe we're going to be protecting ourselves from this and from the mandates on it in the future.
I mean, this is the one issue in which Trump has been blind, as you say, one major issue, and refuses, right? He's refused to say anything bad about the vax. Whatever.
Absolutely.
Not a
single...
single...
to the point where he brought Woody Johnson up on stage. He's like, everybody, look at him, clap.
And we're
like, this isn't what we want.
And look, it's just like the one issue where he just absolutely stubbornly refused to say anything negative. And so this is a big deal to me. I mean, here he's saying like, well, they show me these great numbers, but maybe it wasn't brilliant. I sure hope it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. Everyone said it was brilliant. So this is a pivot that I think a lot of people didn't think they'd see. And it's a really good thing that he's saying this and thinking these thoughts now, because we might be able to get some more justice for what happened. And it also is, I mean, this is the signature issue for corruption in the medical community. This is like Maha 101. It's really his base agrees with this, that this was a problem. So if he's going to turn on the vax, that's a great thing, and start to question. And it shows above all, always chimp, and that Trump also he's not just calcified in his ways. Like he changes and he pivots and he moves about the cabin in a way where he finds the win. And that's something to remember about him.
It usually is good on that. And like, for example, when he was talking about getting rid of the low-income housing mandates in the suburbs, which, by the way, I grew up in some of those areas. Every liberal mom and dad agrees with it. But when he says it out loud, everyone got really uncomfortable. The conservatives, the Democrats, whoa, we're not allowed to talk about that. But this is a tribute also to a testament to RFK's staying power and his influence, because he's the real person who's changed in here. Trump's inner circle has been anti-vaccine since 2020. He's the person who's changed. At the beginning of the week last week, we were talking about how he was going to come into trouble when he had leaked the story that the vaccine was on the chopping block in the future. because that was President Donald Trump's baby. That was his real. That was something that he was not going to change on. This could be a threat to RFK. And 1 week later, board notes that vindicate his firing of the steering committee have come out, and President Trump is tweeting, maybe it wasn't all they say it was.
That is a huge change in just 1 week's time. What are we going to see, though, from NatCon? Let's get into it when we come back. We're going to have some panelists here. We're going to try and bring some of NatCon to you at home. Don't go anywhere. We'll have more right after this. Well, after a long holiday weekend, there were some questions about what was going to be happening in D.C. I'm not talking about NatCon. I'm talking about Donald Trump and his health. Chris Bedford, when we looked at this, there were a lot of rumors that were flying around online, and Donald Trump was putting out on Truth, "I've never felt better in my whole life." So he was out there, like people were concerned that he wasn't out there golfing all the time and just not in the public eye. So the libs took this chance and they were like, what if he's deathly ill at this point?
Oh, they can't wait. They want him to be Joe Biden so badly. They have these creepy liberal white women up there singing nursery songs about how he'll be dead soon. There's all these hopes. They're not allowing him on TV. I think actually the most convincing of the conspiracy theories that he didn't play golf over Labor Day weekend, which, that is actually strange. But turns out we got one of the greatest tweets of all time from Donald Trump this weekend. Whether or not he was under the weather or totally fine, he spent a lot of time just autisming out over security footage to figure out why there was a crack in his big, beautiful limestone. Limestone, a beautiful, soft stone that he had hand-chosen for this Rose Garden remake, which he has had such a hands-on appreciation for, that he called the speaker guy into the Oval Office and grilled him for about an hour about sound. Because this is a guy who does events. This is a guy who cares a great deal. This is a guy who will kick a senior staff member out of the Oval Office on television if his phone goes off. He doesn't mess around with this stuff. He cares. He's like, I really need the sound. He let the reporters come in and crank it. He cares. So the limestone getting cracked right down the center. So he's reviewing security footage.
President of the United States.
And he finds this contractor cart that bent over because they were going too quick, and it put weight on the limestone where it shouldn't have and caused a crack that spread. So he has like cell phone footage of a security camera, like it's some kind of Instagram post, posted up and says these guys are banned. This contracting company will never work. I figured it out. So Donald Trump is very much in charge. He's doing his thing. He's sending out his best tweets, his best truths. But I love the conspiracies. I just want him to die so bad.
This is the best combination of Trump. I mean, real estate mogul who cares about the details. That was his business. Plus TV guy who's been on TV, in a hit show for a decade. And all of that converges in moments like this where you see the full autism. Right? There's a little bit of that in him. I mean, there really is. And this is just the kind of person who is just maniacal about excellence. So look at this detail. I love that stuff. What I don't love is whatever's going on with the press on this one, because it does feel like so reaching. Like you're at the point where you have to pretend like the guy is dead. Is that where we're at now? I guess that's where we're at. I mean, we're grasping at the straws of there's no golf.
Without evidence. Meanwhile, Joe Biden was falling down the stairs, falling up the stairs, falling down on stage with not knowing where he was and wandering away or appearing motionless. And they're saying, what evidence do you have?
Yeah, they didn't see him for a few days, but he was still being interviewed in the White House. Like our friend Reagan Reese was there interviewing him in the Oval Office. She's been posting pictures and we've seen the transcript now. And it's like, no, he was doing things. He just wasn't walking around for everyone to see, which he is just usually this personable of a guy that he is just making himself known and even like talking to the press pool as he's walking by all the time. But that didn't happen. And so people are like, oh my gosh, the man must be dead.
The press does the worst versions of what the conservative press has done in the past to liberal presidents. Like, I can't believe Barack Obama's going to Mexico. They do it so bad. Why is Donald Trump on the roof? Is he trying to distract us from the Epstein files? Why isn't Donald Trump golfing right now? Is he dead? And it's this is the point where we've gotten to. There is no more mainstream media. CNN's views and Blaze TV's views and Newsmax's views are on parity. There's no more, and now they're having to chase this clickbait. And it's funny. It's hysterical.
So I was thinking about this, Trump is dead thing, this meme yesterday when, it's Labor Day. And I have to say, I mean, the way in which the religious observance that bureaucrats hold to their federal holidays is unbelievable because there were no cars. There was no one around. So it was a beautiful day. So I walked all around Washington and it was glorious. But one of the things I noticed, and I thought, is this just in my head or is it real? Is that everywhere you go, you see signs of vitality rather than signs of, the death of the president or senility. You see it physically in the buildings and in, big American flags outside of Eisenhower. The White House is gleaming. There's people up on the roof. Looks like there's activity going on up there. I just want the McDonald's to be built. But
it's a launch pad.
Everything looks, and I don't know what this is in my head, but everything looks clean. The banners that are up are amazing. And it just feels like it's shiny. It's shiny. You feel the life just physically looking at the buildings. Trump understands that. It filters down into the rest of the administration. So that to me was just heartening. And it feels like, this is your city again. This is America's city again. This is a place where, everyone can come and it's yours. You can come visit. You got the National Guard walking around just a little bit in the background. No this crazy fascism, but these guys are walking around all friendly, talking to the kids. Everyone feels safe. And you can see, people just coming and visiting something that's actually public. I don't know. I don't want to, white pill on this, but I feel like your republic is back. The republic is back again. And you're starting to physically see it.
Union Station is nice. I need to swing by there because that place was awesome for a while. A great place to meet someone for lunch, get a beer. You could take your family to the pizza place that's now gone after decades. You could go to, if you were missing something, you're missing a tie or something, you could run over to the mall there and grab something on the hill. It's all gone now because it was turned over to the mentally ill, homeless, and drug addicted and violent people. And then Trump took over Union Station from Amtrak and said, never mind. The lease is suspended, I guess, for now. I'm in charge and we're going to have order here and it's not going to be a homeless camp and we're going to make it clean. And I have to swing by because that was such a gem of the city, the entrance point of the city. And we're hearing from our managing editor who came into it yesterday. He hasn't seen it like this since the 90s. Yeah. The 90s were bad too. So Union Station must have had its act together real good. DC 90s, rough time.
Donald Trump getting things done. We do know, though, I mean, he celebrated his 79th birthday. It was the big army parade over the summer. We were here for that. And even if you want to give just an inch here to the libs and say, okay, like maybe he's not exactly at the top of his game right now. Well, if we just go back to look at what he was doing during the campaign trail, right? Those final nights on the campaign trail where he's staying up until like 3, 4, 5 a.m. on the jet flying from city to city. Like, I want to know how I get to be that vibrant at that point in time, because what vitamins is he taking? What IVs is he getting? He was just going out there doing things that they would be difficult for us to do at this point in time.
This is what's crazy about this whole meme campaign that, he's gone. This is something you can't question. This is not like propaganda. It's not a joke. This is a guy who works like 16-hour days. I mean, that's just who he is.
Remember when they pretended that Joe Biden did that? And then in order to prove how on top it was, they would leak these stories of him screaming at aides. Like, he's so on top of it, he screams at me. Like, oh, we've all unfortunately gone through people who we love. Yeah. Senility. And sometimes it comes with anger.
That's what the libs want to do, though. They want to project what they had onto the conservatives. And we've seen this time and time and time again. So if our guy wasn't healthy, well, neither is your guy.
You guys are fascists. Why? Because we're stopping crime? You were arresting priests. What are you talking about?
We're spying on the American people, spying on the domestic opposition. And now, again, on that walk, it was hilarious to me. It felt like the most natural thing in the world to see a couple guys in camo every so often, just happy, strolling around, talking to little kids. They keep on going with this. Please keep on going with this because you got nothing.
It feels like 2019. I felt it today just driving into the city. It was beautiful. I felt DC for years, not when I first got here, but for years was a beautiful place to live. Yeah, especially when it wasn't summer. Yeah, and you'd come in and it was gone for a while, and I really missed it. It made me wonder why I even stayed so long at points. But it's feeling back right now, and gosh, I hope it stays.
Yeah.
It's going to stay.
We need
We're going to do everything we can
need
to
some
make sure
2028 action here. Yeah.
we need to make that happen. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll get into NatCon. We'll bring you a little bit of immigration from NatCon right after this. Well, right now, Islamist enclaves are quietly taking root in America. They're buying up land, building parallel societies, and using our own freedoms as a cover. So how far has this already gone? Here to shed some light on the rising concern is Nathan Pinkoski. He's a senior fellow for the Center for Renewing America and author as well. So thanks so much for being here, Nathan. When we look at this today at NatCon, part of your speech is going to be creating Islamist communities in Christian America. So give people a sense of what's actually happening in America right now.
Yeah, so first of all, I think we need to understand that the strategy that's being used here is one that's already been used in Europe. There's a playbook. It's been going on for decades. It's actually a fairly clearly written playbook, so we know what to expect. We know how it works. You go from a strategy of developing cultural separatism, of cutting yourself off from the rest of the community around you, the broader cultural majority. And then you use that not just to disappear like the Amish or to have your own little enclave where you stay aside. You use it to try to launch a takeover of the territory that you're in. They think of it as a strategy of civilizational conquest, to develop an alternative civilization and to expand and keep growing. So France has the lost territories of the Republic. Britain speaks about Muslim communities developing parallel lives, a parallel polis, if you will. And that's the Islamist strategy. So what do we see right now in our country? Well, we see a rising population brought about especially by the open borders that we've had in the past few years. We see our growth trajectory in the past 15 years has actually been greater than the British trajectory in the past 15 years. So our curve is steeper. Yes, we have a smaller population, but another detail that we should bear in mind is it's wealthier. And that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference if you're, as you just said, right, buying up land and thinking about having these strategies of taking control of neighborhoods, moving forward from that. So we should be vigilant. We should be looking to where these develop. We do have some legal tools that help spot this, that help us see what's going on. And put up some barriers. One of the things that is actually useful in this sense is that when these communities are launching, they proceed with a lot of they're intentionally seeking out people of the same ethnicity and the same race. Often, your Somali Muslims are not the same as those from, say, Yemen or Lebanon. So we can use some tools that are available. There's a great deal of legal tools. Fair Housing Act, for instance, can spot some of this. So I think what we should bear in mind here is it is happening. There is a playbook that we can see the parallels. And the broader strategy that to be looking out for here is this separatism with a view to long-term cultural takeover.
Well, we also have to mention that Nathan, excuse me, is a Claremont Institute fellow back in the day as well. So we know he's a good guy. I was just in the Middle East and, witnessing the way in which these are tribal cultures still, birds of a feather flock together, as they'll tell you there in English. And the extent to which that's true is just something I don't think Americans really, fully can grasp. And even people in Europe, same way. But we have the example of Europe, and that's sitting before us. And I think a lot of people in our audience, already know that this is a problem in Europe. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the response so far? I mean, have we responded any differently than Europe already? Or are we just making the same mistake without people realizing it? What do you think about the difference in response?
Well, this is the problem, I think. Just to see how many we've been bringing in the past few years. And yes, people will say, "Oh, it's only a small percent, 1%, 2% of the population." Our growth curve is larger, and just the sheer number if you think about it, we have almost 4 million now in the country of Muslims. And of course, I'm not saying that all Muslims are Islamists, but the problem here is that Islamists use that particular society. And here's, I think, to get to the heart of your question, use the particular Muslim communities as a venue, as a launch to spread their ideology. And this is the thing we don't understand. We think often that every group that comes in wants to share in the broader nation state community. And that's not what's going on here. What happens is the groups that come in tend to preserve a lot of their tribal connections. That's the primary relationship. The primary relationship that mediates interactions is not we're citizens. It's we're members of the same tribe. So when I see you, we hadn't met in a while, in fact, since a couple of years. Yeah. I see you and I think of you perhaps as a friend, perhaps as a fellow citizen. But the tribal relationship doesn't come into things. I don't know anything about your ethnicity. In fact, so that's not part of our thinking. But we do have these other groups that view themselves in those terms, and that what makes them so vulnerable to Islamist capture. So we have to, I think, really bear in mind that there is this whole other category, this whole other way of relating that we've lost sight of in the West because, again, we tend to think about our immediate family, our friends, and then we jump to the nation-state relationship, the citizenship relationship. But in most human societies, for most of human history, there's a whole different category that's in between the tribal category, the ethnic category. And for a lot of these groups coming in, that's the priority. And we've just pretended that doesn't exist or put it aside or said, well, it's just incidental. It's part of the rich tapestry of our diverse community, without understanding that that's a real that brings about real ethical obligations, real moral obligations that cause some difficulties.
So, I mean, basically, you're saying we're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
We're just we're walking down the same path and into the same track.
Yeah, often with looser border controls and a looser immigration policy, and one that's not thought through. Europeans are actually pretty strict in a lot of places.
When you look at Muslims in Western countries versus the Muslims that live, in the Middle East, in the Islamic countries, is there a difference that you see? Do they have different goals, or is this like they go from one? Because we know that the immigration, they don't go to other Islamic countries. Now they're coming into the West.
Yeah. So this is exactly it. Decades ago, we thought that, and this is, I think, the European mistake. They thought if we just have a small working community that comes in, maybe they bring their family members, but the temptations of Western prosperity will bring about them to abandon their old way of life, and that hasn't happened. And then we have another problem that's compounded that too. We had decades ago, people would talk about globalization would ensure the integration, and people's desire for more economic wealth and prosperity would make sure they left this sort of fundamentalist religious baggage behind. But globalization and technological advances work against us here, because when you move now thousands of miles away from where you came from, with the powers of modern communication technology, you can be instantly related to your community back home. And that means the ties that 100 years ago, when you had Italians who left the mother country to come to the United States, it became difficult over weeks, months, years to maintain that old relation with the old community. That's not what happens here. You can keep that relationship going, and that's exactly the kind of modern communication channel that Islamists use. So we don't see a process of assimilation. We don't see a process of integration. We see the preservation of the same motherland that was there outside from another country here. And that's what's been going on for years. The evidence is there, but a lot of us are still attached to that old vision. Prosperity will make this all wash away.
So what do we do about this? I mean, if you're advising the Trump administration, what do you tell them?
Look, I think we have some domestic tools that we can be more vigilant about using. I think we have to be very, very mindful of the creation of ethnic enclaves and look for where that's happening. I think the second thing is we have to look at foreign funding and where this is coming in to help launch these communities. I did mention earlier that the communities tend to be wealthier, so that can be a little trickier to stop private funds going back and forth. But foreign funding is a whole different game, right? And the Europeans, to their credit, in recent years have gotten much better about this, looking at where foreign funds are coming in and trying to stop them for the creation of Islamic centers and so forth. Another tool, though, that we really have to look at ourselves carefully about is our immigration policy. This is really at the heart of it. This is the only way that we can make any real concrete advancements. We have to look at our policies that are far, far too generous, that don't consider cultural factors for when we're assessing valuable immigrants. And as a result, are opening ourselves to just continuing and promulgating this as we go down into the future. And that's the hard question for a lot of Americans, because we like to think everyone can come here and over time everyone can come to be American. We have to let that view go.
Matt, I know you were excited to talk with Nathan about Camp of the Saints, so I'll let you set it up. I don't want to take that from you.
Well, in the midst of all of this, there is a book, a very controversial book that really you weren't allowed to say anything about over the last few years. I was, Camp of the Saints. It's called Camp of the Saints. And this is a book that's very prescient. It's talking about really all of the issues that we've been discussing today, that we've discussed a lot when it comes to immigration and sort of a naive Western world. And Nathan has been tip of the spear on this. He wrote a review for First Things magazine of this controversial book. And I feel as if we're now at a place where this kind of topic is what everyone's talking about. And It's not something that you're supposed, you don't have to be like quiet about it, whispering in corners. And this book is finally going to be republished. So you should tell our audience about what this book is, why it's controversial, and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. So really excited about this, because this is a book that's been available in French for years, never gone out of print. In fact, the author, Jean Raspail, is a respectable, for a long time, very much a mainstream French author, won a number of the most prestigious literary prizes in the country, was nearly admitted into the most prestigious kind of culmination of your career, your intellectual career in France, if you get admitted or have at least the chance of getting admitted into l'Académie Française. And Jean Raspail nearly made it. He won their top literary prize. So this is not a fellow who was on the fringe, not a fellow who was way off in the side, delivering racialist screeds. This is someone who was really part of the literary intellectual mainstream of France until recently. And the book, it's in English, it's been a banned book.
When was the book published?
1973.
1973, yeah.
So, and then a couple of years later, an English translation came out. That was in print for a while. But what happened was the owners of the English translation, the rights for the English translation, suppressed it. So we just did not have a copy that was available in English. So now we do through a small publishing company that's been launched to prioritize academic writing and other thinkers who've been neglected. That's Vauban Books. You can pre-order it now. It should be out in the next few weeks if you want to read it. And I really encourage you to do that, because what the novel is really about, despite people saying, it has these racialist themes, it's really holding up a mirror to our own civilization. It's looking at us and asking, what are our faults? What are our vices that we would not be capable of understanding who we are, such that we can distinguish ourselves from others in the world? So it's about Western guilt.
And say a little bit about the plot.
So the plot is 1 million migrants arrive on the shores of France from India. And but the way it's structured here is very important, because what it actually is that's the initial event that starts off the novel.
You just think about this, 1973. Sound familiar, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the what was going on here was Raspail was imagining. No, this wasn't mass migration. Wasn't happening in the early 1970s. This is what makes the novel so valuable as a prophetic work. It was not something that was on the radar, but Raspail discerned that we in the West had a number of vices, a lack of confidence in our own civilization, a self-hatred that made us vulnerable to precisely this kind of event. And the way the plot of the novel proceeds is we start off by the scene of the migrants arriving on the boats, and then it goes back to tell the story about how we got there. And what is actually at stake, again, the novel's about us. It's about the West. It's not about the migrants. It's not about Indians or anything like that. It's really about our own vices and our own challenges. And so what actually happens in the novel is civil authority in France breaks down before the migrants even land. Because what's going on is a kind of war between two different factions in the West. Those who are trying to articulate some kind of capacity of love for one's own, of self-defense, shall we say, an ordo amoris, right, an order of love, right, that would prioritize our friends, our family, our community. And on the other hand, there are those who want to wipe all that away, to wash that all away, and think that the migrants are the engine to make that possible. So again, the migrants are being instrumentalized here to something within our own civilization, a kind of progressive ideology, a warped theology that has us view ourselves as effectively a worthless civilization. And he saw those trends coming in the 1970s before there were even, a million migrants coming
This has been
every year.
I mean, it's so eye-opening that this happened in 1973. People were actually looking ahead and seeing what this is. So Nathan, if people want to follow more of your work, where should they go?
So I usually write for either First Things or for Compact. I also have a Substack, which you can find, last name Pinkoski, Pinkoski, called Lament for the Nations. So you can follow my writings there. And I hope at the very least you can buy a copy of this new edition of Camp of the Saints and read it for yourself.
As he said, go get a copy for yourself. Nathan, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. Well, Matthew Peterson, he's once again here. If you watched the show last week, you knew it was me and Bedford holding down the fort. We did so well, if I do say so ourselves. But we did miss the man. I mean, he's here all the time. So, Matt, I don't know. I'll let you do the honors. What were you doing? What were you up to and why?
Well, mostly I was just watching the show over and over again with you two, thinking like, wow, what a great job. I don't really need to be on the show at all. This is incredible. And that was most of my day. But the rest of the time,
but the other 23 hours of the day
was visiting various sites in Israel. Did the whole holy site, tour, which was pretty amazing. I mean, going to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, seeing these places that everyone's fought over for millennia, was pretty incredible stuff. And the fact that that the Christian church has been planted at these places for so long, people have fought over this ground for so long. Anytime you go to a city like that, layered with history, it's very moving, very moving. And what struck me, a couple of things. I mean, one is the divisions that you see over there, right, are front and center. They're visceral. So people live in separate existences, right? Jewish communities, Arab communities, right next to each other. We're all reevaluating American foreign policy in this age. So a lot of the, we're here at NatCon. There'll be a debate about this here. This is very, from today's headlines for the right. What is the relationship of the United States and Israel? I think a lot of people here would say, and I'd be among them, that this needs to be a realist relationship. It needs to, actually reflect foreign policy, political reality on the ground. And that's a big debate right now. So for me, this is a fact-finding sort of mission to think about reevaluating American foreign policy in the 21st century, and going there and seeing things was very helpful.
I mean, this relationship is changing.
Yes,
the Democrats are very against Israel. They have to be. Even those Democrats who are very for Israel, who are in elected office, are outnumbered by their voters. Republicans are becoming more skeptical. It's got to be. What's that feeling being? How's that being understood by Israeli decision makers, lawmakers, secretaries over there? The idea that there's going to be a change in the way that we interact, and what do they think it?
So right wing on the right, right. So those are most of the people we talked about. We talked to some lefties as well there, but mostly people on the right. Some members of the Knesset, their parliament. What was astounding? A couple things. One is they're pretty focused on things going on in their small country because there's a lot going on in their war. And they're not, they're not sitting around watching a bunch of American right-wing stuff, right? So I think there's a real focus on intense stuff that's going on internally in this country and foreign policy. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that's really important about where people on the right are in Israel right now, politicians included. These are people who say outright, we don't want your money anymore. We don't need your money. We don't want the strings attached. And they're all very aware that really what we offer Israel in the past is a coupon to buy weapons from Lockheed Martin,
Yeah.
Grumman, the big
You're a
primes.
bulk buyer.
And they're not in a situation where they want that anymore. In fact, one has proposed already publicly in a bill, we need to draw down, whether it's 10 years or 5 years, and not take any of this. We don't need it. You have people in finance saying the same thing, saying, look, we're prosperous. Our economy is taking off. We do not need the aid. And they don't want the aid because they're very aware of what the Biden administration just did to them, which is put the big loving arms of America right around them, like putting,
The peer.
yeah, and also denying them munitions and things that they needed. So you can tell the right wing wants a trade-off. We don't want to be a client state. We don't want to take your money. In return, we need to act for our own interest and exert a little bit more sovereignty in the Middle East. Now, obviously, this is controversial on all sides of the coin, but I thought the realist case there is possible now, because I think that they're about to start speaking a little more plainly, openly, and honestly about how they feel about this relationship. And I think that's something that at least the new right can look at squarely in the face and say, okay, now we're talking about actual political reality and how we should relate to each other as countries, rather than some kind of what I would call weird, religious stuff, which you see a lot of American politicians engage in, where Mike Huckabee or Mike Johnson, God bless them, go to the wall. And I think a lot of younger people just don't agree with that. They don't understand, that side of the relationship. On the other hand, there's always been a relationship between Israel and the West, in the sense that people want to go visit the holy sites, right? Who are Christian. Christians fought over Jerusalem for this reason. So there's a lot of like moving factors and parts, but I think the takeaway was right-wing politicians in Israel are perfectly fine with saying, we don't want the aid anymore. Please, let us get off of the taxpayer dole.
Well, we just talked to Nathan about the Islamic immigration. You were right up there along the border. So take people through just what you would see, how the Muslims and the Jewish people live next to each other in Israel. Because I find that part just so fascinating that we think, like people are immigrating here. No, this has gone on for thousands of years there.
Yeah, let me talk about one city that everyone knows, to give an example of this, and that's Bethlehem. Church of the Nativity. You can go see, where Christ was born, away in a manger. Bethlehem is, at this point, it was a lot of Christians there. A lot of older Christian communities have been there since the beginning. They've been there for 2,000 years. That's changing. So you got 10% maybe of that population Christian. For economic and other factors, they're bailing. They're leaving. We went to a little evangelical church there that supports the Christian community, and birds of a feather flock together. I mean, these are tribal societies. So Bethlehem is very close to Jerusalem and these Jewish communities, but there are no Jews there. There's it's basically
squalid, isn't it?
It's basically Arab, and you can see yes, a decline, a marked decline. I mean, they were very happy that we came in a tour bus because no one's there because of the war. But also fewer and fewer people are going. When they go to the Church of Nativity and they leave. And what you can see is, economic decline throughout that area. On the other hand, right, you go to some of the Jewish communities and you see a booming economy. And so these things are right next to each other. There's all kinds of old lines, right, and demarcations of who lives where. And everyone's just used to it, right? But what you see since October 7th is a definite shift within the country. I mean, one of the lines is a little bit exaggerated, is there's no left anymore in Israel internally. What you see happening there is since October 7th, I don't think two-state solution is valid anymore in that country.
So it seems like Netanyahu is on his last legs. Mm-hmm. I mean, both in terms of age and in terms of the left's determination to get rid of him and his unpopularity in the international community. What's the future there afterwards? Does it go to the left?
So the big issue is judicial reform. The Supreme Court there can take on any case it wants. It tends left, and Netanyahu and friends have decided to fight that, and they are fighting it. And that issue is at the heart of Israeli politics right now. because
back.
it will determine. Yeah, it will
disappeared after October 7th, but now it's back.
Oh yeah, it's back in a big way. There was a professor we talked to, very much on the left, who, is using the rhetoric of you would hear from the left about our sacred democracy, and this is fascism, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a weird system, right, for Americans to understand, because you have a parliamentary system, and then you also have a Supreme Court that's sort of like out there, no written constitution. In the beginning, they said we're going to write a constitution, and they've just kicked the can on that since the
That's
country
worse
was
than us
founded.
missing the budget.
Yeah. So that debate is big. It's not clear what happens when Netanyahu, finally exits the stage. But I will say, the country is much more right wing than I think people realize, especially since
War makes realists of you.
Yeah.
I mean, there are friends of mine who are in the NatCon space reporting said that there are very, very, very few doctrinaire liberals, like woke liberals, in NatCon, because it just doesn't national defense.
Yeah.
Excuse me, not NatCon. That because it just doesn't allow for it.
Right.
Human nature is laid bare.
Yeah. So if you live in a situation, for instance, when you talk about settlements and settlers, controversial, like, these Israelis are taking over from the Arab communities, you're talking about people who walk around, and we saw this a bunch, with an M16, while they're walking their kids to school or working on the farm. They just carry an automatic weapon with them. So that tends to a kind of realism that's a little different than what you'd see in sort of airy-fairy America. And I would say that as a whole, I mean, it's a religious society, right? Even the secular people there are still abiding by Shabbat and, other Jewish customs, even when they are secular. There's sort of a cultural, religious element, as well as, the ultra-Orthodox, the Orthodox, and other practicing Jews. So this is, it's not as lefty as you'd say, but I think that what's happening is interesting, because I think there's an important conversation to be had to what the relationship is for America. And you get a lot of, Israel first, younger people in Israel, just like you have America first people here. And there's an interesting conversation to be had between those two.
In the final 60 seconds of the show, your favorite place that you went and why?
I think that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, just because I walked in and went to church on Sunday, right by the tomb, and I will never forget that.
It's a pretty good one. Have you been?
I've never been. I would love to go.
Same. When are we going? When are we leaving him? The show will be on him for a week, and you and I'll just go over there and
Never.
Never? Wow.
Not until my kids are a lot older.
Oh, that's a great point. I can go anytime though. If they want to take me, I'm available. Matt, I'm glad that you went. I'm glad that you brought your stories back and a couple of the pictures. But for the whole week, it'll be NatCon. We'll be bringing you everything that we have from Washington, D.C. That's going to do it for us tonight here on the show. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow. So where do we go from here?
To the moon.
Blaze News The Mandate is the must-watch show for America's golden age.
What you're seeing now is the dazzling light of all the missiles that Trump has launched into the deep state, right?
Hosted by Jill Savage and Matthew Peterson.
We need to get real about this.
We're uncovering every story that's shaping Trump's second term.
Let's start with a definition of the deep state.
It's your inside track to history in the making.
The golden age of America begins right now.
Don't miss a moment. Catch Blaze News The Mandate